Okay. So it's a little bit different than the other streams I've done relating to Dragon Ball, in that most of the other times it was about a character and typically how I thought they weren't being used correctly. But someone actually made a point that I thought was really good. So I had stated that one of the issues I had with Super was that it had a bunch of transformations, like just too damn many. I actually believe that if they had just kept it to the initial God form, so the red hair one, and then the Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, which is the blue form, I would have been a lot less annoyed. But in the span of what, less than 3 years of that show running, we got the original God form, blue, uh, Ultra Instinct, Rosé, whatever the hell that thing that Trunks turned into was, and I just oh, and then also the royal blue form that Vegeta had. So I wasn't that big a fan of most of those forms, but there was someone who actually stated that if you really think about it, Rose is the first form that a villain has had uh, in the entire mythos of the show. So, including GT, where only that villain is shown to have that form. So, what I mean by that is uh, just to go a little bit in order, King Piccolo could turn larger, and that was something that Piccolo Jr. or the Piccolo from Z that people are more commonly aware of could also do, and that was something that Lord Slug had. So it's this ability to turn giant was used by multiple antagonists, and then when you get to the Saiyans, the Great Ape form that Vegeta had was used by Goku, Gohan, a whole bunch of different people. Not even counting the Bardock special where they had the whole group of them turn into great apes to invade somewhere. uh, Absorption, which is something that Cell has and Boo has as well, except it's done differently. But the point is that that technique that leads to a transformation is still being used. Hell, technically, if you really think about it, even Moro has that ability because the last chapter. I don't want to spoil it because I know there's a big contingency of people that don't actually read the manga, which is the craziest thing in the world. Um, I mean, like I always try to kind of exercise a little bit of a put myself in that person's position thing, but I just want you to think about this. You want Dragon Ball to come back, and then when you can get new stories in the form of the manga, you choose to not read it. And then when people are talking about the manga, you're like, what's going on in there? Like, I remember about maybe 5 or 6 months ago, like right before this year started, there's a person who I was in a Discord server with when I still operated on that website, and they were explaining this villain to this person who claims that they're into Dragon Ball, and I'm like, why the hell don't they just read the manga? It was strange to me because the manga is free. It's actually more accessible than the show is if you really think about it. People they're a strange group. They do things that I don't really comprehend. That's why I said a lot of people like that purport themselves as Dragon Ball fans are just like they weird me out with some of the choices that they make. Like they have the option to read the whole series if they want to, and they choose not to. And then when people are talking about the first one, they're like, I don't know what happened. I've never seen this. This has never occurred. But one of the things I talked about in a positive manner relating to the future Trunks arc slash Goku Black or whatever you want to call it was that it was probably the most we'd seen of Kid Trunks in terms of just like him being used effectively and in a way that was unique and given a role that only he could play since the 13th movie, Wrath of the Dragon, because they let Kid Trunks interact with his future self. They have a little sparring match. And really, the only thing they could have done more with him in that arc that I would have preferred was to have him join in on the final battle. Um, but there was someone on a forum I read a couple of days ago, which is where I got this idea to do the stream, where they were talking about how it would have been really cool Because if you remember, Gotenks was able to go Super Saiyan 3 after Goku showed that to Goten and Trunks, and they were impressed by how the form looked. So it would have been really nice if maybe, uh, just kind of like this is me basically giving a hypothetical of how they could have had a more organic story, in my opinion. If when let's say Trunks went back to the past, so Kid Trunks went with Future Trunks and the rest of the group back to Future Trunks' timeline, and he saw Goku Black, and he could comment about how cool that form looks. And then in the Tournament of Power, they could have Kid Trunks and Goten turn into Gotenks for the first time we've seen in God knows how long, and he could appear as a Super Saiyan Rosé, and it would basically mimic what they did with Super Saiyan 3, where it was supposed to be this really difficult, hard transformation to get by normal means, which is why only Goku has it out of anyone that's not fused. And then they give it to a character that, it's kind of like I don't want to say gag, but also is not by normal means through being a fusion. So it would mimic that where uh, one of the two of them sees that form, thinks it's cool, and then tries to get it in their fused state. And I'd actually buy into it. That's why there were a lot of people who, for example, don't like Kale or Caulifla, especially Caulifla. And a lot of them I've found out like Kefla. And one of the things that makes them like Kefla is that we know for fact that fusions have an easier time getting these massive boosts of power. So people that were pissed off when Caulifla turned into a Super Saiyan with that stupid back tingle nonsense bought more into the idea that Kefla could be strong, just by virtue of being a fusion. Like it was a lot more believable based off of what the show had set up in the past, that fusion could achieve these massive gains in power. It actually felt like organic writing where they're going back to a technique that makes it easier for people to get stronger, but also has an in-universe explanation for why that's the case. Mm. No, they have some of the craziest ideas with these transformations. I don't know. I just don't like the idea that we see Rosé, but then it goes unexplained, and Black's not going to just sit there and jot down how you achieve it. And letting one of the protagonists get it would have really given us a chance to kind of go in depth as to what the differences truly are between it and Blue. Like when it first showed up, I thought maybe it was around the same level of strength as Blue, and then that was because of the fact that Super Saiyan Rosé Black was able to beat Vegeta in his blue form, and then Vegeta was later able to beat Goku Black in the blue form while Goku Black was in the Rosé form. So I was so confused. And I'm glad they didn't give him another transformation. I just, it's like what is the true power difference between these two transformations? But that's why giving it to somebody like Gotenks, a character that talks a lot, would have been beneficial to us getting to understand what truly is different about that form. Because he will sit there and just blabber on about it. Oh, this form is 3 times stronger than Rosé. I mean, than Blue, excuse me. But you won't get Black to do that because he's that's why when I did the Why Goku Black Was Wasted video, I mentioned that if you don't have him explain or give us some kind of imagery of him getting this form, how are we supposed to know how you get it? Like, what is this? Is this like the just be an evil Saiyan and it will come to you form? There's one person actually said they made Goku Black because they knew they were going to make Broly a good guy, so they needed a defunct, not defunct, but a default evil Saiyan that could be in the new material. It would make a lot of sense if that was the case, but I kind of the part of me that really doubts that is if you know anything about Super, the writers don't actually plan or think things out. So that's one of the main reasons I doubt that theory. Although if that's true, it will be very funny. That was actually one of the reasons I was kind of annoyed by the reveal for the new Broly, which again I think is a better character than the original. But I guess I'm just kind of tired of them taking all the antagonists and making them good guys, or putting them on the side of the heroes. Like you already did that with Frieza, you're now going to do it with him as well. You know, they get really mad whenever you criticize any of the decisions that are made. And again, it's not a critique of the character; it's just a thing of the overall writing seems to lend itself to this direction that instead of having a villain come back with some explained reason for their power boost, we're just going to have them come back as allies over and over again. So I think it's crazy as hell. Oh yeah, there was this one form I was looking at where they were talking about bringing Cell back, and I remember in the I forgot to mention this during the Cell stream, but in the manga, they actually have confirmed that there are wild Cell Juniors just out in the. I don't know where they came from, but they're in the manga. They attacked Goten and Trunks when they were watching 17's little hideaway island. And I remember I was thinking to myself, so all these people who keep telling me, how is Cell going to get revived? Well, they can just have those wild Cell Juniors grow a brain, which they evidently have because they knew to stop attacking Goten and Trunks once they realized that they were not poachers. They could have them gather the Dragon Balls after stealing the radar from whoever, and then there you go. But somebody actually said it would be really funny if Cell had some way of observing what was going on Earth, and he was able to get because he has Saiyan cells. So if like his new form was in the color of Rosé, and it would make sense too because Cell and Black actually have a lot of parallels. They're both antagonists from alternate timelines who, express murderous intent toward future Trunks, with Cell succeeding in killing future Trunks, and then Black attempting to, but not succeeding. They both want to destroy, a planet at least. There's a lot of things they have in common. They enjoy fighting. That's why I always try to explain. I get that Frieza's the most iconic villain, but there's a lot of stuff they could do with Cell or these other antagonists that have traits that are akin to the protagonist. Yeah, let me see if I can find a picture of that. Oh, that was a nice color scheme for Cell. I never thought of that before. Yeah, that would be an interesting video just to like catalog all the similarities between uh, Black and Cell. I just realized that would be nice. Just take all the things they have in common and kind of put them down together. Because I really thought Black was going to be Cell 2.0 in terms of just having like the whole team fight him, and uh, you know somebody has to unlock a new transformation or something like that. Just but they really shocked me with the direction they went, which was not very pleasant. Oh yeah, also I remember I used for the Gohan stream I did. I actually used this picture somebody made of Gohan as a Super Saiyan Rose, which I only used because I thought it looked cool. And evidently, I'm not the only person who thinks that because I've seen other fan art that people have made of him with that particular transformation. And there was someone who was like, "Oh, I don't like the way that looks with the orange gi." It's like, yeah, but they could just have him wear the Piccolo attire that is actually his base outfit, like the one that he's most commonly depicted in. We've seen him wear that at every. I just realized at every stage of his life, other than yeah, wow. The only thing he doesn't wear that in at some point is GT, and technically in the show of Super, but the manga has him wearing that. Piccolo's outfit is just a really nice. Uh, it's basic, but it's also it has this distinct thing to it, especially when you include the cloak. So it looks nice on pretty much anybody that has it. I just found somebody made a fusion of black and cell, and it looks. Uh, I'll put it this way: very distinct. It's a nice looking image. I should get the Google Hangouts again, where you can show different images that are on your computer, because then I could actually demonstrate it, or at least show it off, as opposed to describing it. Mm. Now these forums get really crazy. Like I remember one of the things that annoyed me was that when Ultra Instinct came out, I said, "Oh my God, it's not just another hair color change. It's actually something kind of similar to Kaioken, where it doesn't necessarily change the way he looks. It just kind of this is back when it was only the false form or whatever, where just his eyes change. I said, oh, that's actually kind of nice. And then they screwed it up by giving him gray hair, and I vomited, and that was the end of that. Yeah, I really don't get the appeal of that form. But then again, I'm just tired of transformations. They're really. I made this point before. Goku, Vegeta, any of these supposed main characters, they have more transformations than they have techniques at this point, which is the craziest thing in the world. And then most of the transformations don't even get used. So what's the point of even having them? Like, why use the original Super Saiyan or two when you can just use red or not red, God or blue, or in Vegeta's case, royal blue. Hell, I don't even think we've in the entire Moro arc, which has now gone on for almost 2 years. I don't think we've seen Vegeta use any non-God form. So they basically gave a soft reboot to the transformations at this point. Because remember, the excuse for not using three was that it takes so much energy and it's so strong and it's going to make him get tired very quickly. What's the excuse for not using the original forms that apparently there was no issue with him using, and apparently don't consume as much energy? I told you that's what they do with all the forms, where basically once they introduce whatever they think is the hottest act, the ones from before just completely, if they do get used, it's not actually the fight, or it's just kind of like to show how insignificant or minuscule it is at this point. Like when Goku went Super Saiyan 3 at the Tournament of Power, you knew that he wasn't going to stay in that form for more than like maybe a minute or two, and he certainly wasn't going to actually fight anybody in it. It was just to demonstrate it. Yeah, I didn't realize there was such a large contingent of people who don't want go on to get a new form, and I would theoretically place myself in the same camp because I am tired of transformations. But if you can tell an interesting story with it, and you can tie it to something that's unique, I probably wouldn't have that much of an issue with it. Like if you could make, let's say, I don't know, he gets the God form, but when he's in the God form, that's only when he's able to use some move that he learned from, I don't know, Wheeze or whatever. I'd be a lot more willing to put up with him having a new form because it actually has a purpose as far as technique is concerned. But when it's just, oh, his hair is now this color and he's now 5 times stronger, I roll my eyes. But again, a lot of that is tied to just the fact that they won't let people learn new techniques that are actually offensive. So I'm not counting instant transmission, but just, like, oh, Kamehameha, Dragon Fist. And then those are the only two moves you can think of that he has that can actually attack someone with, but then he's got 9 different forms. I didn't realize the writers were that more like that bankrupt when it came to new ideas. Like I thought new moves would be a lot less difficult to make than transformations. But then when you look at the transformations, they're just palette swaps where they just change the color of the hair. So then you basically say, hey, I get if they're this lazy when it comes to making the new form, then it makes a lot of sense as to why they would have such a hard time making new moves. I actually don't think in the entirety of Super have we actually seen until this new arc anyone learn a new move. Now that's crazy as hell. I have to really think about it. I mean, I guess maybe if you want to count that blue Kaioken thing that Goku used as a technique, you maybe could theoretically call that something. I still wouldn't. All these transformations, no new moves. So I think Rose is now the because they gave Trunks, and I don't watch Heroes. I think it's garbage, but they gave Trunks the original God form, and it looks awful on him, just ridiculous. But I think Rose is now or Rosé is now the form that we've seen the least amount of people use ever. Again, if you count like outside of the series, because we've seen a bunch of people use Super Saiyan 4 and non-canon material, which I mean, all of GT is now considered non-canon. So uh, it's weird. Like Rose is this thing where they don't want to give it to anybody else. Like not even in what if stories or anything. It's really kind of crazy. It's just going to be this exclusive form. In the anime, we didn't even get an explanation of Rose. Yeah, it just appeared out of nowhere. Like Black went from getting curb stomped toward the end of that fight with Goku to then having a form that was apparently stronger than Blue until it got weaker than Blue when Vegeta trained for a day. Hey, Bader, there's a certain person who likes to do explained videos. I want to know how he can explain a form that the show itself didn't explain. What secret book is he going to pull out to give an official explanation for something that couldn't even get explained in the arc it was in? It was only in the manga where we got to see Goku Black, how Goku Black gets the Super Saiyan Rose. Well, yeah, that's why I said the manga. I think every arc in the manga is better, other than the Tournament of Power to the anime. Yeah, Kainzenshu. The website or the forum, because the forum they say all kind of crazy stuff on there. Now, the manga gave a lot more explanations for stuff. The manga just doesn't feel the need to act ridiculous. Like you can want Trunks to beat the main villain all you want, but him getting that big, huge, enormous power boost uh, just from one day of training with Vegeta was insane. Didn't make any sense whatsoever. I'd say of all the characters in Super, him and 17 probably got the worst random power boost where they just like decide this character needs to be 50 times stronger than they used to be. So now they are. I still feel bad for Vegeta. Poor guy trained for months, hyperbolic time chamber, and still got outclassed by Goku. Well, Vader, the real reason that happens is because the writers can't come up with good reasons to actually make Goku the strongest anymore. So they just basically have this like weird thing where they pretty much want to indicate to you that because of Goku's plot armor, nobody can surpass him, even for a little bit. And it wasn't like that in the original series. For example, when Goku goes to train on King Kai's planet, he learns the spirit bomb and whatnot, you can infer that if the others went there with him, which they couldn't because they weren't dead yet, they probably could be just as strong as he was. When Goku was much stronger than everybody at that tournament where he fought Piccolo Jr., that was after training with Kami alone, and you could infer that if the rest of them trained with Kami at the same time, they probably would be around the same level of strength, if not equal to him. So Toriyama was not a stranger to giving explanations as to why there were these massive gaps in power between Goku and the rest of the cast. It's only with Super and a lot of the newer stuff where it's just let's be lazy and not come up with any good idea. Hell, even Super Saiyan 4, yeah, it came out of nowhere, but it still had not 4, excuse me, 3. It still had an explanation that because Goku was another world, his body didn't suffer the same kind of stress as a living person, and therefore it was easier for him to maintain that form or to acquire that form. It's only been with Super and GT as well that they just decided we're going to only ever make Goku the one who can stop or be strong or whatever. Like everybody else just doesn't cut it because we say so, which is really dangerous because it means that fans will take any kind of slapdash explanation for something that doesn't make sense. Like the writing is so bad now that Goku and Vegeta could be, I don't know, in the hyperbolic time chamber. Vegeta could be in there for 10 days, Goku could be in there for 5 days. And then they come out and Goku's 3 times stronger and Vegeta's 2 times stronger. Like they just don't care about explaining things anymore. Hell, didn't they retcon I just realized, didn't they retcon the hyperbolic time chamber because it was said during the Cell saga that you have to basically, you can only be in there twice before the door shuts down on you? Wow. Goku surpassing Vegeta in Super. Explain. Oh, oh, what? Yeah, he likes to give explanations of everything. Hey, Vader, did you see the video by what's his face about like what if one of the characters had an STD? I was like, who the hell wants to watch that? Like, this is a show. Like the basic themes of this show are training, fighting villains, maybe the characters' relationships, but they never talk about if there is romance. It's very, it's like, oh, this person has a kid with that person, they flirted, whatever. But it's just weird. Like like what, like how do you watch this show and just in the middle, I wonder if this character had gonorrhea. Like that's strange. That's what I said, man. People on here, the stuff they like just befuddles me. Like I'll get 4 people to a stream about a transformation that the show itself didn't explain, but then some dude makes a video about what if one of the characters was screwing and getting infected by people, and that just blows up. Thousands of views on that trash. Only character I can see who gets laid from time to time is Hercule, but even then, why would he sleep with anyone who has a daughter when he has a daughter? Yeah, he has a reason. He has a reason to tamper his sexual escapades due to having her, his daughter, as someone to live for, and therefore not want to risk his health while she is still in a developing cycle. Like it's dumb, And it wasn't even about Hercule. That's the screwed up part. That the one character who would make sense to maybe explore that with, they don't even do it with. They are just complete clowns. Both the subscribers and the people who make that stuff. Because you know what happens when you go in the comment section. This was so great. I've been informed. Krillin has a wife. Master Roshi doesn't seem to be someone any woman wants to see. Hey, Vader, the screwed up part is you could say that about a lot of people in real life too. Could you imagine if they did like a show about Roshi's, because he's been around for what, 300 years, and you just find out that no one ever was interested in him. That's why he's so perverted because he just got sick of trying to be nice. The most sad story ever. Oh, speaking of Hercule, somebody actually had another good idea. So remember how Zamasu was indestructible or could not, he was immortal? They said instead of bringing back the Mafuba, they could have had Boo go to Future Trunks' timeline and turn Zamasu into chocolate, uh, or absorb him and have him just in his stomach forever. And maybe he could sneak up on him with Hercule acting as a decoy. I thought that would have been really good because it would have made a little bit of, like, what's a good word for it? Thematic sense to have Boo, who was apparently going to be a threat in Future Trunks' timeline before Future Trunks stopped Deborah and Bobbity from bringing him back, to have him save that timeline. Like, it would be really ironic. That would be too smart for these writers. Apparently so. They don't come up with good ideas anymore. They don't believe in riveting plots that actually connect to past events. But the real reason is that they just don't care. They know that as long as they write something, the fans will enjoy it because it's new Dragon Ball stuff. Because they've been starved of new stuff for like almost 20 years at this point. I never told you about that one time I was on Discord, and this was back when the what arc was going on. It was at the start of the Tournament of Power, and this person said something to the effect of, "Oh, I like Super because it offers us new DB content." And I thought to myself, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in the world because Dragon Ball was one of the few concluded things I can think of as far as like the story was over, where we were still getting new content. Like we were getting a new game every year. So it was just, it was strange for these people to try and pretend that. And then the other thing is, uh, Battle of Gods and Resurrection F were both under the labeling of Z. They were new films for Z. So they could have theoretically just made more films instead of making a crappy show. I like this because it gives me new DB content. You're already getting new DB content every year for 30 years with all these games. And the last couple of years, you got multiple movies. Man, they are crazy. I can't wait for us to do our Super Saiyan Beta, Super Saiyan Rosé Beta story. Like, this is what happens when you squirt too much. I think you can continue DBZ since the show ended on Goku flying with Oop to training, but the point where they are continuing with is so weird. Yeah, there it's a what's it called, interequel, some kind of set in between the Boo arc and then the end of the original. I really don't know why they just can't do the end of Z because all they'd have to do is if they want to use, let's say, some character they think is too old, they could just use the Dragon Balls to make them younger. So it's just kind of like a thing where they don't really care about what's a good word for it, actually making sense. Like they're just choosing to not use Oob because let's just keep letting that character be only in a few episodes of GT and in the epilogue of Z. Uh, like they don't really care about moving the story forward in any capacity. Marketing, I guess they can't afford to have Trunks and Goten grow, even though those two don't get used. Well, that's why it's weird to me because, like, if maybe you don't buy it, but they did use Trunks during the Future Trunks arc. He didn't get used as much as Future Trunks, but he still had a role to play. They literally don't do anything with Goten that entire show other than have him stand around. Like the closest thing we got to something like Yamcha gets more screen time in that show. He got a whole episode dedicated to him, which was cool and it's probably I'd say one of the top 5 best episodes of that whole show. That's really a sad thing when like all the episodes that are really good have nothing to do with the supposed main cast at this point or the main story. It's like a running theme at this point. Oh, Bader, I was going to ask you for the VC after this because I want to speak to you about this new scandal that emerged yesterday, where you were talking to that green guy. GT ended the story better than Z. Imagine that, and sure. I don't know what you're saying, sure to the VC, but I agree that GT had the best, most concrete ending of anything. I'd say the only other ending that was decent was probably the one for the original series, which is still not an actual ending. It's just an ending of an arc. But personally, I'm almost at a point where I just want to like take the ending for the Cell Saga and just erase everything after. I'm so tired of this show. All right, so thanks for showing up to the stream. I wish my subs would have shown up, but you know how it is on here. If you try to talk about some good story idea, you get 1 view. You make a video about how strong someone is, you get thousands. These are sour grapes.